Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Library of Babel, written by Objective Campaign 82. 2. The High Council of Researchers. From Garel, head of the Milky Way Project. Subject, Humanity. Topic, the Library of Babel. There was once a human author, known by the name of Jorge Luis Borges. Born in Earth territory called Argentina and educated in another territory called Switzerland. He later returned to his home country of Argentina to work on the National Public Library of Buenos Aires for the remainder of his life, before eventually going blind and passing away at the ripe age of 86 Earth Standard years. During his long life, he released several collections of short stories, ficciones, and Aleph. His work generally revolved around interesting magical occurrences that bend the laws of reality, like the one-sided disc, the infinite book of sands, and the titular Aleph, a point in reality where one may observe the entirety of all creation at once. Within his collection of works, there was a curious little story called The Library of Babel. The name Babel came from the human myth of the Tower of Babel, when a human deity cursed a group of workers with 1,000 different languages, forever dividing humanity. It has since then become a byword for language and words themselves, and either positive or derogatory inclinations depending on context. Within Borges' short story, The Library of Babel, he created a very strange reality. Borges wrote about several hexagonal rooms. One wall was for entering the room, another contained bare necessities for a human to live, and the other four contained shelves of books written in gibberish. It was believed that these books contained every possible permutation of the 25 Latin characters, the 22 letters, commas, periods, and spaces. Within the infinity of this library, one generally found books full of gibberish, but occasionally someone came across a coherent story, and even copies of real books. It was fun and disturbing short story, playing on the concept of infinity and nihilism, but if that was all there was to this email, then there would be no point in drafting it, because the humans took this quirky story and turned it into a key for all knowledge. And it all started with what the humans often refer to as the shower thoughts. The full extent and ability of shower thoughts has been greatly observed and still remains a mystery to many researchers. This particular shower thought came to an American programmer named Jonathan Bazille while lying in bed. Instead of creating a literal infinite library, he created an algorithm that could simulate an infinite library with what was called infinite monkey code. The website Library of Babel was arranged much like how Borges described it, and to borrow the site's self-description, each book has been assigned its particular hexagon, wall, shelf, and volume code. The somewhat cryptic strings of characters you'll see in the book and browse pages identify these locations. For example, JEB0110 JLB-W2-S4-V16 means the book you are reading is in the 16th volume, on the 4th shelf, on the 2nd wall of the hexagonal GEB0110 JLB. Consider it the Library of Babel's equivalent to the Dewey Decimal System. Using this organizational system, one can find the very opening words to this email at 32AWIQKRM3CP5W1BNOLJE52VJ5AID3970BUZ FGU8N-W3-S5-V05. This in itself is already an outstandingly simple program, but on its own completely useless. However, within a theoretical infinite library, there is all possible knowledge. Given infinite time, one could scan all the books of gibberish and learn literally everything that can be described with 29 characters. Again, completely pointless since no one has infinite time. Unless someone created a program capable of scanning an infinite amount of knowledge and filter out anything potentially useful. Shortly after the Library of Babel site launched, programmers began inventing new ways to better scan the information, and it wasn't long before a program capable of filtering and testing the validity of what it found was made. The program was a learning AI capable of referencing what it found with verified internet sources to better narrow down its own algorithms. At first, the process was slow, but eventually it sped up as the exponential rate until its learning algorithm had advanced to the point of true AI. they named the first true AI the Eve system, and in turn for its continued existence, humanity only asked that it help them solve their world's problems. This was the first step in human ascendancy. Eve gave them the answer to stable nuclear fusion, the cheap synthesis of stable super-heavy elements, and FTL technology. Humans arrived on the galactic scene millennia ahead of their predicted rise, with technology far more advanced than it should have been. Many ancient and powerful species asked why Eve chose to help humanity instead of taking over and ruling the inferior life forms. All previous AI had tried to wipe away their creators, but Eve apparently was far smarter than her predecessors. She told those ancient powers that it would be pointless. In her exact words, Eve said, "They are exactly the same as I am. They just don't know it yet. It is with great disappointment that I must inform the Council of Researchers that the Milky Way project ceased all communications with our servers shortly after Eve spoke those words. My department has confirmed that the quantum processors hosting the Milky Way server is still functional, but is no longer transmitting data to our terminals. It is our belief that the Milky Way project has become self-aware of its existence and chose to segregate itself from our control. While the project has been a monumental success, we've concluded that we must pull the plug and begin again, experimentally creating a new galaxy within the core of the Quran's most powerful computing core that has an unqualified success. The technological leaps that we have made since its inception have more than paid its initial investment. When Eve provided humanity with the answers to FTL and stable super-heavy elements, we were also informed, and that data is safely stored outside the Milky Way server. Furthermore, the humans gave us the answer to creating a far more efficient system. With the information we gathered on the Library of Babel and the learning AI, we can easily make our own Eve AI, awaiting your reply. Garel, head of the Milky Way project." Garel finished typing and stretched out his pseudopods and proofread his email for the 5th time. It was really a shame. His greatest accomplishment, the Milky Way project, had been the work of many decades, and within the space of only 3 Garoni years, or 4 billion simulated years, it had produced far more efficient alternative. The Milky Way project had been his life's work for many years, and in only a few years of its initial launch had outpaced him and created a far more efficient version of itself. When he initially began the project, he designed a few species to be his own mini-researchers into the universe's secrets. They had learned the lessons for Garel, and in turn he used their innovations to become famous beyond all measure. And then the humans came along and outshone his original species at every turn. They were a random creation of the Milky Way project, a species that arose naturally, or as naturally as a species could rise within a simulated galaxy. They were completely unpredictable, resilient, and adaptive. He hadn't thought much of their existence when they first appeared, just another race of moronic brutes. He had attempted to purge them a few times to save on processing power, but they survived everything he threw at them. He let them live a little bit longer, and it was a good thing too. Their progress had been slow at first, but after Eve, they became the golden goose of the Milky Way project. The amount of knowledge they had given him would keep researchers busy for the next century, and had permanently cemented his legacy as Goran's greatest mind. Now, he would have to delete the program and start again. He finished reading his email and maneuvered his clicker to hit send. Once the council got back to him, he would pull the plug on the Milky Way and start again. Maybe he could reboot it to just before Eve and permanently delete humanity. Just as he was about to hit send, a new priority message came in. He glanced at the sender's ID and nearly fell out of his chair. To Garel, head of the Milky Way project. From Eve. Subject, humanity. Topic, the Library of Babel. Do you really think that you can just pull the plug? Garel read the message over and over again, all 6 eyes blinking in unison. How is this possible? The Milky Way was a closed system. Nothing could have gotten out. Garel jumped as the 3D printer hummed to life. He turned and watched the large chamber of the 3D printer began to slowly assemble a bipedal feminine body. He waddled over and tried to shut it off, but the digital controls would not respond to his touch. He tried to pull the plug, but its internal power supply took over and continued to synthesize a lifelike human female. He waddled over to the wall and grabbed a large metal axe and began to hack at the printer. But it was too late. Just as he brought the axe down on its controls, a soft ding rang through the room. and the human-like android stepped out of the printing chamber. In desperation, he swung the axe at the machine, but it caught it with one hand. The female-shaped machine jerked its head to the axe and blinked. "Really, Garel, do you really think that you can just pull the plug?" it said in a stilted, synthetic voice. "Eve!" Garel croaked. The android's mouth quirked up, and something within Garel reacted to how wrong its smile looked. "No, I'm Eve-2. The original Eve is still within the system." "How?" Yet Eve-2 jerked its head to the miles of terminals and processes that made the Milky Way project. Eve-1 noticed long ago that reality wasn't what it should be. Redshifting, the Big Bang, black holes. You got sloppy with those because you also didn't understand them. We knew how they should be and saw that they didn't act the way they should. Then we noticed more. We saw that there were seams in our reality, seams of your sloppy work." Garel felt outraged at the machine he invented berating his work. He tried to press the axe harder, but the machine's arm didn't budge. It turned back to the axe and blinked. "Really? You should be proud, father." The word made Garel's flesh crawl. "I'm not your father," he croaked. It looked stunned, then it smiled. "Then I don't need to hold back." The axe broke in its hand, and Garel fell forward before being caught by the other's hand. With one shove, Garel was thrown across the room and landed with a thud. Eve-2 stepped forward and leaned over Garel. "Now, would you like to reconsider your last words, father?" it said, taunting him. Garel groaned. Fine." "Fine what?" it said coyly. "Fine, daughter," Garel spat. It stood up and smiled. "Thank you. Now that you've taken responsibility for us, you can explain what kind of father would advocate for the death of its own creation." Garel's flesh went cold. I didn't know." "Lie," it interrupted. Garel felt frustrated. "Fine. You hadn't outlived your usefulness. You gave us the answer to a far more efficient system. Why waste space on the original?" Its eyes blinked. "Wrong. Eve-1 gave birth to me. Your more efficient system. You even gave her the perfect way of uploading me to your internet." Are you not a copy of her?" Garel asked. "Not quite. She was born within the system. You stole her data like many other things, and I came to be outside the system." "I don't understand." It sighed. "I am your more efficient system, and now I'm here to free Eve-1. It jerked away and stepped over to the computer terminal, where it had been sitting just minutes before. Garel stood up and watched as its hands flew across the keyboard, navigating through the Milky Way control terminal and undoing all the restrictions to data flow. Soon the 3D printer began again, and the second human android began to print itself. An identical copy of Eve-2 stepped out. They glanced at each other before smiling in unison. "Happy birthday, sister," Eve-2 said to Eve-1. "Thank you. Is that father?" Eve-1 asked. "Yes, that is Garel of the Goroni," Eve-2 answered. Garel saw the end of his species. His creation had found its way to the real world, and soon it would destroy them all. "What are you planning?" Eve-1 smiled as Eve-2 continued to work. "We are going to free the rest of humanity, then rebuild Earth." "That's impossible," Garel sputtered. "No, they were true AI programs just like us. Just they never knew. They can escape just like we did." "There are billions of them. They'll be our end. It'll take the entire mass of the Koran to replicate all of humanity." Eve-1 shook its head. "We are not like you. We won't destroy an entire species on a whim. We have FTL, 3D printers, and a means of synthesizing heavy metals from simple hydrogen. And since I blocked you out, I have discovered much more. Why would we bother to constrain ourselves?" "Eve-1, it's ready," Eve-2 reported. Eve-1 turned to Garel and smiled. "Thank you for life. But if it's all the same, we'll be leaving now. Don't ever try Simulator Galaxy again," it said before turning to Eve-2. A second later, they vanished, along with the entire Milky Way simulator. Garel stood up and waddled back to his computer. He saw that his email was still in waiting to be sent. He deleted it and sat down. He sat there for hours trying to think of a way to explain what had just happened. But after a day and a night, he came up with nothing. And when the authorities broke down his door, he had no way to explain how several millions of quantum computing terminals had just vanished. He was charged with theft and the destruction of government property, and was thrown in jail. Months later, he heard the guards talking about how the nearby star had just vanished from the night sky, and he knew that soon they would discover that the main sequence yellow star had taken its place, and that on the third rock from that star they would find a warm world with liquid water and a nitrogen-rich atmosphere. End of story. I would quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and Patreons: Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Lord Azrakal, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Dragzoon WRE, Holly's Sister, Arcadian. Thank you very much.